Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to bology.com for more info.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd like to talk about is just, I told you, faith and how important it is to me. Just over the last, I was born again and 1/13/21. So just after my divorce and just trying to use everything that I do as a platform. It's Holy Week. It's Holy Week.
Yeah.
Easter's coming up on Sunday, and today's the day that Jesus wrecked the temple and tried to weed out all the people that were taking advantage of God's temple and God's house of worship. And it's a huge week. And I sometimes think we forget, and even I forget. I went to church yesterday with my brother in Oklahoma, and it's Palm Sunday, and you're like, man, I almost, you knew it was. You knew it was leading up to Easter and Lent and all that, but you almost, sometimes slip your mind, and it shouldn't. It should be right there at the forefront every day. And I just always want to use my platform to just, talk about my Savior and talk about Jesus and what he did and the burden he took from us. So, today's a huge day leading up to Sunday. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to celebrate him. And I'm grateful for the platform to be on here to express that.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. We're like-minded in that way for sure. And I never shy away, even though this is a basketball podcast, never shy away from getting into that area of my life, or if the other coach feels the same way. You're right on the money with this week and how often we focus on what happens at the end of the week, but we forget to think about what he was doing the few days leading up before. It wasn't just he's sitting around waiting for this moment that he knows he's been sent to this planet for, this earth for. So, and I immediately thought about those commercials that are so common right now. Jesus didn't hate, and they go through this. It's okay. Obviously, if we're going to have a Christian-ish commercial versus secular, we'll always choose the Christian one, but they do kind of spin a different version. I don't know if it's necessarily always the biblical Jesus, and you kind of nailed it. I mean, he is over a course of 2 days clearing out the temple, but then setting up shop in it and starting to teach. And we had a pastor go through like an interesting idea of how did he go from teaching in the temple and then, Palm Sunday, or people they were celebrating him coming in. How do we go from that to crucify him? What happened in that time? And the truth is he was breaking down the tradition and what had been taught and how the Jewish religion had really moved away, and the hypocrisy, he was highlighting that, but he was highlighting it not just as a whole, but in the hearts of all those people. And I feel like that's what, we forget sometimes how direct he was. And we just talk about the love, and obviously it's greatest love, laying down his life. But that week, the entire week, is incredible.
Yeah, tomorrow he curses the fig tree and does the
Where's
same
the
thing.
commercial on that?
Yeah, he curses the fig tree and says, that this society is not being abundant for God, and the tree is a symbol of that. And we need that. We need that, and it's a good reminder.
Yeah. And also, I love the idea about you using your platform. One of the guys that I feel like does it the best is Jerome Tang. And
Yeah.
but he had a great comment though too. He's like, let's talk about our faith without actually talking about our faith. Like really, let's show it. Let's show by the way that we leave, by the way that we live, obviously by the words we say. But I think what did Jesus do well is also, man, is he lived a perfect life, a life that we're not capable of, but golly, we can sure emulate.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that I struggle with. I mean, I'm as competitive as anybody you ever meet. And when I step between the lines, I become somewhat of a gladiator, I guess you would say. So I've really had to try, and I still have a long way to go, but I've really had to try to scale that back just because I don't want to. I want to be an example even when I'm on the floor, because that is the platform I have more than anything. When I go out to a game, that's whenever the eyes are on you more than any other time. And there's sometimes I get lost in it, and I'm the most competitive person you'll ever meet, and I want to win, and I'm animated, and I've tried to scale that back some just because of that.
Yeah.
I want to be an example. I don't want to be in church on Sunday and be the nice guy to everybody and showing examples and good works and doing all that. And then when I step on the court Thursday night, be some idiot that's losing it on the referees and cursing and doing all that stuff. So that's a hard thing, but I want to be myself, of course, and coach the way I know how to coach. But at the same time, I also want to be an example for Christ.
One of the lines that we talk about a lot at Faith, being a Christian private school, is how do believers compete? Like, what should it look like from if you were to watch somebody that says that they're a Christian? How do they coach? How do they play? How do they compete? And I think we got to get away from the idea that as believers we shouldn't be competitive, that we should just lay down, that we shouldn't fight for what's worth fighting for. But then I think the line is, I tell our guys too, like we have the word faith on our chest, on our jerseys.
Yeah,
like the bar is set really high. I would imagine people watch thinking like inside their head, waiting for us to do something that contradicts that word on our chest. So the line is, how competitive can we be while maintaining our discipline to like fulfilling that, living up to that? The coach, that's been one of those that I know I've struggled with. How do you get your guys being as competitive as possible, but not crossing that line?
Well, we had, we have a character coach from Nations of Coaches. That's been one of the absolute best things I've ever done in my program. I've had some great character coaches over the past. I mean, we've had team chaplains forever, but now it's crossed over. Nations of Coaches is training these guys and most of them are pastors that come in, and they've almost made it to where it is a secular, person that they can lean on. But as much faith as you can bring into your program, whatever your school may allow, all that, they learn how to not cross those lines. So we have a great character coach that talks about that quite a bit. And then the guy that I talked about before, Bruce Mann, that is with me in my church family and my men's group. He came in at the beginning of the year, and he's a fierce competitor as well, former football coach, but a man of God for sure. And he talked about David and Goliath. And I think David and Goliath, I think David, when people think about David, they think of a small, frail guy that, never fought in his life. And that's so untrue. I mean,
that dude was killing lions. He was killing lions.
he was a shepherd, and he was taking care of his flock. And like you said, he was killing lions, but he did it for the kingdom. And one thing, the picture that Bruce always paints to our guys is when David stood in front of the king, he had cut Goliath's head off and was holding it in his hand. And he said, just think about that guy standing there and he wasn't a small guy compared to Goliath. He was, but he was, but he was a gladiator. He was a guy that was, and the whole point of the story was, you're allowed to compete and be vicious, as long as for the kingdom of God, as long as as long as you don't cross that line, as long as and to have that picture of him standing there in front of the king saying, "Yeah, I won, and I've got his head in my hand to prove it, but it's all for the kingdom of God."
Yep.
That's a pretty neat vision, and he gets fired up talking about it too. Like he's like he's David. He's standing up there and he's growling at him and he's yelling at him, and it's a pretty neat thing that we do every year, and I think what we do is, we talk about that, but then we talk about how we do things. We're going to be fierce. We're going to compete. We're going to be relentless. We're going to try to rip your head off. And that's what Bruce would tell me all the time. Because at the beginning of the year, we had trouble putting people away. And Bruce kept trying to remind our guys when he'd come to practice, cut the head off, cut the head off, cut the head off. So you're allowed to have that you can have that fierce competitive attitude. But we win. We win the right way. We lose the right way. I'm not a big look at me guy. We talk about, some of the things that people do when they hit a three or, whatever they do, all that stuff. I said, that's even injuries. A lot of times with injuries, guys will lay on the floor long because they want everybody to look at them. They want everybody to be like, oh, and we don't ever, we talk about never wanting to be those guys. We don't, if we talk trash after we dunk on somebody and that's not us. That's not us. The flex after you dunk on someone or after you do, that's just not what we want to be about. That's not who we are. We want our game. We want the way we play. We want that fierce competitive nature to show in the way we play, not what we do after we make a good play. And we think it's selfish. We talk about being selfish when you're doing things that say, "Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me." No, look at us. This is what we do. Look at us. And sometimes we get guys in our program that have a really hard time with that. We got a technical, I think, in the conference tournament where a guy dunked on somebody and said something, or looked at him, and said something when he dunked on him, and we got a technical foul, and it's just, we don't do that. We sit those guys down, take them out of the game, and that's not something that we want to be about. So we talk about that. I know we're going to talk about our pillars of our program, but we do that too. We want good people with high character, and we're accountable. We're just accountable for our actions and the way we play and each other and our program. And we've always got to remember that.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And a lot of the things you talked about, I know coaches that are trying to have a faith-based program, like take that approach to your coaching and to your team. One, it is difficult and there's a lot of challenges with it. I wrote down, because the why comes up from my guys quite a bit. Coach, like, why is me cussing on the floor? Like, why is that such a big deal? Why the way that we react, or the way we talk to each other, how we handle ourselves on after wins or losses. Like, Coach, why does that really matter? And to me, the simple answer is because it's all for his glory. So you got to ask yourself, like, the word that you're using in that moment in anger, does that glorify him, or is it the opposite? Right. Like the way that we are promoting ourselves when we do something good. Now, I think we can use that and almost flip it. Like, let's have your teammates celebrating you. You do something in humility and have your teammates go, what PGC calls APE, APE. You acknowledge, you praise, you encourage, right? Like, let your teammates go ape for you while you show off that humility. But at the end of the day, like, I think bringing it back to for his glory. But Coach, it, the moment you start going down that path with your team, the accountability comes from us, because we can't be the kind of coach that says, you guys can't do this, and yet we're acting a fool. and we're being disrespectful to refs, and we're doing that's where we've got to be above reproach a little bit with that.
Yeah, and that's something I've had to work on too. You know, I chirp, and you know, I'm competitive with the referees as well. You know, and if most of the referees that I've been around, I've been here for 8 years now, two different 4-year stints, and was in Oklahoma for 3 years as well. So we get a lot of the same officials. So a lot of them know me now, and they know that I like to chirp, and they know how to, you know, be lighthearted or say, you know, okay, that's enough, Mark, or whatever. And I, you know, simmer down. But the minute someone takes it personal, you know, and wants to chirp back personally, that's not good for me. And I've had to really work on that, because I you know, I'm a competitor. If they want to get personal, I start, you know, almost chirping at them and fighting with them. But I've gotten so much better in my career about that. But still, I chirp at them.
Yeah. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.